The people, the headlines, the issues impacting you and your family. This week in Cincinnati on 9 on Your Side.
Good morning, I'm Carol Williams. We begin this week in Cincinnati with a look at implicit bias. Those are the unconscious decisions we make every day that rely on stereotypes or attitudes that shape the way we see the world. Since February is Black History Month, it seemed an appropriate time to look at this more closely. The National Underground Railroad Freedom Center has just opened a new exhibit on implicit bias called Open Your Mind. It can be a tough subject to talk about for a lot of us. So joining us now to discuss it are Dr. Clarence Newsom, president of the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center, and Rich Cooper, director of Museum Experiences. Also with us, Lucy May, who covers these issues on WCPO.com. Thank you all for being here.
Oh, pleased to be with you, Carol. Thank you for having us.
Great. Dr. Newsom, give us an example, because we're not talking about blatant racism or sexism here, but give us an example of the kinds of things we're not conscious of.
Well, we're very often not conscious of how things and people that are and who are different from us impact us in ways that we even fail to act consistently with the values that we think we have. So that in the spur of a moment, we might see a person who is different from us down the other end of the street, and we say that our value system is such that we want to treat all people the same. But in a moment, we might find ourselves getting very uptight, getting very, very fearful that they might do some harm to us. We might even cross to the other side of the street, not aware that we are offending them even, and in some sense falling short of our own commitments to self. This happened to my wife and me in Paris 2 years ago. We were on a street towards the end of the day, far away from home, and down the other end of the street we saw two gentlemen coming. They were Afro-French, and all of a sudden we found ourselves getting a little uptight. They were younger. We were by ourselves, and we wondered whether we were in danger. I have felt ashamed ever since. For even in that instance, somehow or another, some biases that I had acted on me in ways that I had not anticipated, although I would have thought beforehand that I was the last person on earth who would have acted that way.
Now, Rich, tell me how this new exhibit would help people. It's called Open Your Mind. So how does it help people open their minds?
So we bring people in, and what we attempt to do is we say that, even though you have biases, it's a human nature to have bias. That's okay sometimes. Here in Cincinnati, we show sometimes that you're going to have a bias over for the Cincinnati Bengals compared to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we have sports biases.
For good reason.
For good reason. So we try to set up and show that, hey, there are good reasons that we do have biases, and this is human nature. But then we start to get into a more difficult subject with them, and we have them actually take an implicit association test, which we have 4 tests that we run on our system at the Freedom Center. There's a gender test, there's a weapons test, there's a race test, and there's one as simple as flowers and insects. And we're allowing people to take those tests, and then they get a result, and then they come around and we actually say why that happened. We do a lot of visual illusions with them. We'll do a lot of conversations with school groups when they come in of how they just engage with one another. We're starting to work with teachers where we're going to ask them questions about how they engage with their students in a classroom on a daily basis. So it's really there's exhibit components of it, but it's really a learning space where we're going to have people look at themselves, but in a very safe environment.
Lucy, you cover especially poverty extensively and social issues, and I can't help but wonder how implicit bias doesn't affect children before they've even had a chance to achieve their potential.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because implicit bias, I spoke to the Harvard professor who came to the Freedom Center and spoke last Friday And she was talking about how implicit bias is something that people have no matter what your race or gender or sexual orientation. Everybody has these things. So even if you're a teacher, an academic, someone who's working in these important fields, and you have the best of intentions, there are ways that your brain's working that you're not aware of that can really affect how you treat people.
Well, and how, especially how teachers might treat girls, minority children, people who are not just like them.
Of different classes.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Children with disabilities, that
Right.
and these are things that we're trying to show teachers, and how they we can never get rid of bias, but how we can reduce it in the classroom, or how we can reduce it at Procter & Gamble, or how we can reduce it within police forces across the United States. So we're really trying to start those conversations so we can first make people aware of it.
So who is your exhibit for? I know you have school children. Do you try to draw in Procter & Gamble and companies and police?
We're very much working with Procter & Gamble and other organizations. We're working with the Chamber and Insights and Inclusion and different businesses across Cincinnati. So we kind of have multiple different approaches to the exhibition where we work with the general public. We will have times where you come in and you can do a learning lab experience, no matter the age.
A mother can come in with her children.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's for everybody. One thing about these tests, you cannot fool them. I don't care what your demographic profile is. Bias will show up. Now, once a person becomes aware, the question is, how do they manage what they are aware of in ways that makes them a better person in relationship to other people?
Right. When you saw the two Afro-French people coming towards you, I mean, what did you do in your mind later to go like, why did I do that?
One of the things that I did was to start reflecting on some of the research that I had been introduced to by way of Rich bringing us in contact with Dr. Banaji up at Harvard, and asking myself, what can I do to de-bias or manage my biases better? Well, what I did was to say, henceforth, when you see someone in a situation like that, think person and not race or class or anything like that. And to get myself there, what I've done is a little trick. I don't know that this would work in every instance, but if I see someone who is obviously of an African background, I will think, well, maybe this is a person who is of European background, so I will interdict that thought that's working on me to act negatively so that I can readjust, balance, and act positively towards that person. That tends to work for me.
Yeah, we're out of time, and I want to thank you all for being here. It's a great exhibit, and I suggest that everybody see this and learn to open up your minds a little bit at the Underground Railroad Freedom Center.